Thank you, Sasha, and thank you for all of the logistical and technical support you've provided for this very long march through the short course. It's been really invaluable. You've made things run without a hitch. And I will thank Josh, who couldn't make it today, but he's been incredibly supportive, and all of you for being here. It's just been really nice to see all these faces again and again and not feel completely disconnected from the world. So once again, thank you. So today's topic, actually, I'm sort of I sort of hit myself for not having thought of it. And I have to thank Fran Bernstein, my wife, for actually suggesting the idea that Soviet leaders actually could be the subject of a lot of interesting memes, and surprise, they are. So I tracked a whole bunch of them in my usual unscientific, unsystematic way, for which I'm making no apologies. And so I've started through Lenin. I go all the way through Yeltsin. I didn't do Putin because I feel like we've done Putin, and sadly we just keep doing Putin, and there's no end in sight for doing Putin. So we're giving Putin a rest today, though he does make a guest appearance here and there in some other people's meme feeds here. So it turned out, actually, that looking at the memes about the Soviet leaders was a bit more instructive than I would have expected. I mean, really, frankly, I expected this was just going to be a nice little bit of fluff showing you a bunch of funny memes, and mostly it is. It is a nice little bit of fluff showing you funny memes, but there were things about it that turned out to be something that I find significant. And the biggest thing is, again, kind of obvious, but you have to notice it to realize how obvious it is that you know, a lot of scholars, when they talk about memes in terms of jokes and in-jokes, and that's certainly the case. And I am not alone in having made the connection between Russian internet memes and the tradition of Soviet joke lore, of the anekdote. And that's absolutely there. But when it comes to the Soviet leaders, that's where you see the connection to anekdote so clearly, because this is where you have real overlap between the subject matter of Soviet jokes and the subject matter of a lot of memes. So seeing the ways in which the material from older Soviet jokes gets transposed from a verbal genre into the audio-visual genre of the meme is really quite interesting. And then also seeing what can be done with the meme that could not be done in an oral joke, even if it's still consistent, I think, to the large extent with the ethos of the joke. We see the possibilities afforded to us by having a visual component that the Soviet joke simply could not have, both by the fact of genre and also by the advantage of that fact of genre with an oral joke leaving no trace. And if you walk around holding up pictures of Stalin looking ridiculous, you're not exactly making yourself particularly safe. There's also the one way in which the memes about the Soviet leaders significantly differ, I would say, from the jokes about Soviet leaders is the greater emphasis on sheer absurdity. That doesn't mean there's no absurdity involved in the jokes about the Soviet leaders, but I think by now, in our 17th week of looking at internet memes, we can agree that there's a premium put on absurdity in internet memes to an extent that we don't usually see in a lot of traditional joke-telling formats. So, having said that, I want to start with Lenin. I also want to point out that for some of these, for some of the leaders, we find certain themes that that unite a good portion of the memes about them, and Lenin is certainly one of them. First, let me share the screen. Okay.
Eliot, you're frozen. I think you probably know that, though.
Sasha, he knows. He's trying to fix it.
Okay, thank you.
can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Let me share the screen again. I apologize about that. Okay. So, choose your fighter. It's a great imagining the Soviet leaders as the basically protagonists of video games: sniper, tamer, vampire, alchemist, horseman, and stormtrooper, basically. And this pattern is pretty good for summarizing how the memes are working. But first, let's start with Lenin. First, we can deal with Lenin just as an image, which makes sense because Lenin was one of the most ubiquitous human images in Soviet propaganda for all of the obvious reasons. So we see a lot of playing with familiar images of Lenin. Here is a very standard image of Lenin, but now he's asking if he can learn how to play a rock song about Lenin. Here's a famous Lenin poster, Comrade, go fuck yourself. That's not in the original poster. Then give me my 1917 back. You're posting in the wrong chat. Lenin loves you. We have a lot of memes using that that heart thing. I've tried to. I see it everywhere. Actually, if anyone knows where that first comes from, I would love to know. I first became aware of it on Steven Universe, but I assume it goes back much further than that. So how's your democracy? Then there's one that's interesting, a very standard image of Lenin, which says it's the right time for revolution. And it's a great image because when I see that, I can't help but think of the most interesting man in the world, which is one of the most common meme macros out there. You could really do pretty much the same thing with Lenin. After that, though, what we see in the majority of these memes that I gathered on Scientifically is a really strong theme of death. Lenin again and again is about death, being dead, being a corpse. He is the Soviet Union's most famous corpse. So here we have, I see soon that you're going to croak in pain, in misery. Then there's a series of him with his eyes gouged out and sort of glowing. Our greatest enemy is bronze. Nothing's going to work. My favorite, Lenin, which takes his name, puts a T in front of it, and also suggests kind of rotting. Then a bunch more of death and memory. Him and Stalin, you need to live your life as though after your death, your enemies are going to be afraid of your monument. We will refresh your memory. And then a whole bunch, interestingly enough, that can be consistent perhaps with humor about Lenin, but take advantage of information that was not available until the very end of the Soviet Union, which is a particular set of images, or one particular image of Lenin right after his stroke, which did not exactly make him look particularly powerful or attractive. This isn't quite it, we're getting there. Here it is with Krupska. It says, Lenin says, cut off, before my death, cut off my dick. Why? Trotsky said that he's dead and fuck him, literally the dick with him, and he's wrong as always. But the big thing is using this image that I think most of us know of Lenin looking crazed and not all there right after his stroke. Here we have Lenin and the dramatic dog. Here we have a sequence of these Lenin. Vova, are you gonna have any more? Are you gonna have any more? Vova. We're fucked, comrades. And let's pretend that nothing happened. And berries, I see everything, but why aren't you answering? But why aren't you celebrating my birthday? Which I suppose I could sympathize with. There's also a lot dealing with Lenin, in particular as in Lenin's body in the tomb, which of course makes sense, and I think is one of the reasons that he's so associated with death. It says, I'm not moving because I'm afraid that the kitty will get upset and leave. Just 5 more minutes. Hi, descendants. How's the world revolution? Well, in Tambov, they've canceled the 1st of May parade so as not to interfere with the Easter celebrations, all the stuff about Easter. And here he is looking crazed, and he's back in his grave. Then a whole bunch with his monuments. This one in particular is sort of super Lenin. This one, Lenin looking at the others and saying, go fuck yourselves. This one, Lenin was nice and responsible. Here in the photo, Vladimir Ilyich is carrying the abominable snowman home to the Himalayas. Very nice one. And you're not tearing me down, you're tearing down your home country. And my own, I have to say, personal contribution to the Lenin statue memes that I posted on Facebook a year ago. This statue of Lenin here, it's on the syllabus. Then there's stuff involving Lenin's death that involves the big slogan about Lenin, that Lenin lived, Lenin lives, Lenin still lives. This particularly nice one, which is a chart of all of the possible tenses involving Lenin. Lenin was alive, Lenin lived for a little while. I'm not going to translate the whole thing, but it's as if it's a grammar exercise about the life and half-life of Lenin. And then, so I'd said that absurdity is more of a feature of the internet memes and of the jokes. And while that is true, I don't want to pretend that there was no absurdity. And in fact, Lenin is at the center of one of the great moments of absurdist humor in Perestroika, which is Sergei Kuryokin's public announcement on Soviet television that Lenin was a mushroom, which has a long backstory. If you're not familiar with it, there's a Wikipedia page about it. And that became material for memes. Here, instead of, it says, instead of Lenin grip, Lenin was a mushroom. Lenin is a mushroom, Lenin will be a mushroom. Everybody holding up letters. Lenin is not a leader, but a mushroom. And my personal favorite, no, you're the mushroom. And then just a whole general set of humorous and vaguely absurd memes. This is a nice one. Excellent. Now move a little to the left. Wonderful. And here, Lenin and Karl Marx in a sort of Karl meme thing. Then there are things taking images from children's books about Lenin. And this one is great because it's taking that image and it's about dialectical materialism, but it's making a joke about the Gopniki and the Slavic squatting. It says, are there rational roots? And if I find any, which is the big Gopnik phrase that when they ask for money, they say, no, what if I find the money? That is, basically I'll shake you down and get the money. Then there's this totally weird image from a children's book where Lenin is playing hide and seek with children, which is easy to turn him into a monster. We're fucked, it's Lenin. And Vladimir Ilyich took off his scarf, covered up his eyes, extended his hands, and oh, this is actually the original, sorry. Okay, that feeling you have when you really want to get an Oscar, I believe that's DiCaprio. What, is this true? The biggest problem on the internet is that, with citations on the internet, is that people immediately believe that they're real, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. And this one, which I love because really the context, I don't know, did Scooby-Doo play in Russia at some point? The classic Scooby-Doo reveal. Okay, liberal democracy, let's see who you are really. And it's liberal democracy, take off the hood, and it's actually the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. Hey guy, would you like a little bit of Soviet power? And and ending Lenin on my absolute favorite, this was circulating on Facebook for a while, a pun on Lenin's square and on geometry. This is the square of Lenin, which is Lenin. The square of Lenin is his length times his height, because the square is also, the ploshchad is the area of Lenin. It doesn't translate very well, but it's really funny. Trust me if you don't speak Russian. So if Lenin is about death and monumentality, Stalin is unsurprisingly about killing. Again and again, it's about shooting people. Oh, you're funny, I'm gonna shoot you. I'll shoot him, and then I'll shoot you if you don't drop by at the banquet. You already shot him, let's shoot him again. I don't have time to explain, let's shoot them. There's no time to explain, shooter. Comrade Stalin, the prophet has come to tell you the future. Shoot him. If he really knew, he wouldn't have come. Fuck him, shoot them all. And who are you? Let's shoot you. So I think we see a theme. A variation of theme is about exile in Siberia, involving a fair amount of wordplay at time. Here's a whole thing about Siberia. I'm not going to go into all the details. There's all of these puns about ссылка, which is exile, but also is citation and scholarship. You know what I like about scientists? They always have citations or ссылка in their work, which is like exile. Can you send me a little exile, a little citation? a whole thing about mispronouncing gulag. Those who don't master science master Siberia. Ivan Vasilyevich doesn't approve of Repression, which is a play on the name of a film about Ivan Vasilyevich, Ivan the Terrible, changes his profession. And let's have a nice cup of hot represso. Then there's a series in which it's all about Stalin replacing me with us. Memes are ours, YouTube's our tube, Microsoft's our Microsoft. My Wonderful Nanny is our Wonderful Nanny. My page is our page. It goes on, there's a whole bunch, I'm not gonna go through all of them. You kind of get the gist. There's some Carl memes. Comrade Stalin approves of your monologue. This kind of crap didn't happen when I was around. And of course, Stalin giving you the heart, which I like more than Lenin with the heart for some reason. All right, so we move on to Khrushchev. So Americans, what the first thing they would expect from Khrushchev is, of course, the shoe. And there are a couple shoes, but there aren't that many shoes, because Russians know better what to expect here. Russians would expect, and this is all straight from all of the jokes about Khrushchev, corn. It's all about corn, because of his obsession with corn and agriculture. What do you need a kitchen for? Or what do you need food for when you have corn? Time passes, it's like nothing changes. Khrushchev with corn in 1959, Medvedev with the apple in 2012, because Medvedev was obsessed with iPhone and gadgets. Khrushchev cornflakes, canned corn. Comrades, look what I got at the sex shop yesterday. So Khrushchev, how's the corn? And for some reason, my favorite here, here he is, the building's on fire, he can save either the Soviet economy or corn, and he saves corn. Otherwise, the memes are about him being an idiot. Stalin is not to blame for the fact that I'm an idiot. This is what happens when you fall asleep at work, in class. Let's keep going. About him destroying the Soviet Union. And here is Nikita Khrushchev being ousted in 1964. Moving on to Brezhnev. So Brezhnev, we have the Dolly Parton challenge with Brezhnev, the Facebook Brezhnev, Instagram Brezhnev, LinkedIn Brezhnev, and Tinder Brezhnev. We have a great one of Brezhnev has come from the past in order to change the future. Brezhnev is the Terminator. But really, most of Brezhnev is about kissing. All of his kissing of famous male leaders, particularly Honecker, particularly the photograph of him kissing Honecker, which became the painting on the side of the Berlin Wall, entitled "Lord, help me survive this this phase of love." This becomes the setting for so many memes here. Long before Harvey Weinstein, Brezhnev made people kiss him in public. I'm a simple man. I see a mouth and I kiss it. Let me kiss you. The most beautiful kisses. Brezhnev, as always. Then there's the thing with him always giving himself medals. Here it is, the social media equivalent. This is how I feel when I give myself likes. A racist one. How long has Obama been spying on Russians? Oh, a long time ago, and this is supposed to be Obama spying on Brezhnev. The difference between stagnation under Brezhnev and stability under Putin, it's long and complicated, not very interesting. So how are you guys now? Do you have enough sausage? Basically talking about how good things were under him. Okay. Moving on from him, we get to Gorbachev. There's no surprises there. Everybody hates Gorbachev. And the big theme with Gorbachev is that he sold the country, he ruined the country. It's not me, it fell apart by itself. Now everything could be much worse, but I tried. Misha, what are you smiling about? They're gonna get to you in hell too. This is Zhirinovsky saying Gorbachev did a lot for our country. We've got to hang him for it. I buried the country. What have you done for your motherland? Him holding up a stamp saying sold. And then there's an image of Gorbachev, which I was not familiar with, but it's so horrible that it became quite memeified. Probably the worst picture Gorbachev ever took. If it isn't the worst picture Gorbachev ever took, I really want to see what it is. Here it is. SSR, какой сыр, USSR, what cheese. It's wordplay. I'm in shock. At this point, it's less about Gorbachev than about this particular image, which actually sort of reminds me of images of cats when you throw a slice of cheese on their head. That's kind of what he looks like here. Why is Gorbachev still alive? Because the devils are afraid that he would ruin hell. Okay, so more Gorbachev. Let's skip through more Gorbachev. There's plenty of them out of there. Okay. I became president of USSR, and it's all gone. And this was actually a Soviet joke I remember at the time, based on the famous Soviet movie, The Meeting Place Cannot Be Changed, the miniseries, I should say, where the main character is asking for all the criminals to get out, and he says, now I want the Gorbachev, the hunchback. But the Gorbachev says, the Gorbachev, yes, because I'll Gorbachev. And then now comes Gorbachev. This one, Gorbachev says, you have to understand, I took charge of a country that was non-functional. Well, it was hard. What was I supposed to do? And Stalin says, what are you saying? Here's Trump saying, we will leave Iraq. We won't leave Iraq until they pay us billions of dollars for the military base that we built there. And Gorbachev saying, what? I could have done that? We go on to Yeltsin. No surprise. Most of it's about Yeltsin being a drunk. I'd like some vodka, you understand? The Yeltsin Center should have this as its monument. For a long time, I thought the Yeltsin Center was a clinic that treated alcoholics. If the sea were vodka, I would be a submarine. I don't want, I won't. Here he is embracing democracy, but he's being embraced from behind by vodka. Then just him being a buffoon. When you find out that your friend will lend you money, this is just a notice that Yeltsin isn't dead. He's just now in anime. Vova, I'm leaving. I'm going off to get drunk. You take over. I gave up Crimea. I took Crimea. I received Crimea. Nestle and Yeltsin keeps going. He looks like a baby in a bath. Keeps going. All right, and then there's one that I would not have thought of. It makes sense, but from his speech on New Year's Eve 1999, when he says that he's stepping down, he famously said, "Я устал, я ухожу." I'm tired, I'm leaving, which is a very productive meme. Here he is simply saying, "Я устал, я ухожу." I wrote just one. I did just one lab report in physics. I'm tired. When in Estonia they don't give you any girls, I'm tired. I'm leaving. I prepared so well for the tests, and I should get an A on it. The test starts. My brain. I'm tired. So it's so far from politics. It's just about being tired, not wanting to do anything. I just got to work. I'm tired. After sex, girls. Oh, does he love me? Is he going to marry me? Am I going to get pregnant? Guys, I'm tired. I'm leaving. On the internet, I'm going to screw you so hard that that you won't be able to walk. In reality, after 15 seconds, I'm tired. I just woke up at 20. I'm tired. And that is basically it. So there aren't any huge surprises here. The surprise to me is really the consistency, the fact that this has so much going on with it that is so much like the world of Soviet jokes, and the certain patterns like the Ustal thing that from my experience I would not have expected that make a great deal of sense. But that's really it. Thank you all. I will take questions.
All right, the chat is open. David, if you want to go ahead and ask a question, I'll unmute you. Oh, there you go.
Just curious, Eliot. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And did you find any of Lenin post-stroke with the stoned fox?
No, but that would make a great deal of sense, wouldn't it? He sort
It's
of
got
looks
to
like
be out there.
It has got to be out there. Now I have a search term to look for. Yeah. Huh. And then really you should have either Brezhnev or Yeltsin with Zdun. They're both kind of shaped correctly for it. So that would be good too. The next thing really should be what kind of pairing we make between Soviet leaders and other heroes of the Russian internet. They all seem to have possible alter egos, so this is great. I want to find out which Soviet leader is Kanzi Bober. Are there other questions?
More questions.
I can ask something. So thank you so much for this. I was mostly thinking about this in terms of teaching because sometimes it's helpful to use memes to sort of, you know, reminding of going back to what you were saying before about having commercial breaks. And I was just wondering, this was an interesting thing to think about, that the images of Soviet leaders in the Russian language internet are so different from the images that they might have in the Anglophone internet. One, because there's a distinction between different runs. And in the English language internet, you know, from what I can tell, I haven't done a thorough search, but, you know, everything Russian, Soviet, post-Soviet just sort of like comes together into one amorphous blob. And I was just wondering if you'd sort of thought about how you might present these memes to students as maybe an introduction into what the stereotypes they don't have about Soviet history, and sort of an introduction to sort of like another way to think about this, or, you know, maybe comparing the images that they have in the Anglophone internet and the Russophone internet, or if this is something that you had any thoughts about. I know that you put this together quite recently, though.
No, but that's a fantastic idea. I haven't, not just because I put it together recently, but because I haven't taught a Russian culture course in over a decade, I think.
Okay.
But if I were teaching one, I think this sort of material would actually be really great. And what's nice about it, if I were teaching a Russian culture course now, what would be really great would be, in fact, not to have a whole lecture on it, but to spread them out over the course of
Yes.
semester.
Yeah.
When I taught Russian culture, what I did was I would always say, I'm going to tell one lie about Russia during the course of the lecture, but I won't tell you what it is. And you have to guess what the lie is. And since there would be so many absurd things coming up, they would usually guess the wrong lie. But for a culture course, there are plenty of things. You know, one idea I had for a lecture for the series, before I just got tired of doing lectures for the series, and is there are plenty of Pushkin memes out there. Lots of fun.
Yeah, maybe I could try to convince somebody to put this in Pushkin review. That would be what I really wanted them to do. And I was the editor for a while, so I shouldn't be so, in a Slavic audience, be so silly about this. But there's a video game version of Eugene Onegin that was released in, I think, 2008 or something. I think it no longer exists anymore. But Tanya and Olga are both vampires, and then Chesky is also in it for some reason, and Pechorin is also in it for some reason, and I don't know, but yeah, that's a good idea. Is Pushkin on the Russian internet?
Do the duels become kind of like a first-person shooter game, or?
It's a visual novel. So it's mostly like anime stuff, but I think the duel is definitely in it. I haven't played it through, but I should figure out a way to get this. Anyway.
Wow. Well, that sounds
great. I should have the Pushkin memes. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely Pushkin. I haven't looked for other writers, but Pushkin just sort of popped up on his own.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are others. And for those memes, then the next thing to do, and I really should think about this for the book, but I don't know how relevant it'll be for what I want to do. You know, how much are these memes sort of like the Kharms and pseudo-Kharm stories about the Russian writers?
Yeah.
Which would be kind of an antecedent to it. I was so disappointed to find out that the Kharms anecdote about the Russian writers that I liked most weren't the ones by Kharms, they're the ones that weren't by him. But ultimately, of course, it's folklore and it doesn't really matter.
Collective authorship.
Exactly.
Thank you.
But yeah, use this stuff. That's great. Sasha.
Can I make?
Yes.
Yeah, quick. First of all, as far as Russia courses are concerned, I'm going to use your memes all over the place this fall in a couple of weeks, really. I wonder if I'm thinking a little bit about Bakhtin's concept of derisive laughter, which in effect discrowns. In this case, these aren't kings; these are best leaders, but never too late. to discrown one. Does that make any sense?
Totally, totally. I mean, so there are memes out there. I mean, if you use the broadest definition of memes, which of course would cover everything, there are memes out there that are more positive about some of these leaders. There are a couple like pro-Stalin things. I found them less interesting, not because of the politics, but because they weren't funny. But since humor is so valued in here, you do, with the humor and the irreverence, when you combine it with actual people, not just leaders, but certainly leaders, but really celebrities as well, you end up constantly undermining them and constantly, decrowning them and constantly showing them to be human and faulty. And so, yeah, I think there's something very carnivalesque and Bakhtinian about it. No question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the whole course.
Okay.
And с днем рождения. Молодец.
Спасибо. Made it through another year. Alexandra.
Hi again. Happy birthday, Eliot.
Thank you. That's why I did this lecture today, just to have lots of birthday wishes.
No, what a wonderful way to get started or keep at it, right? So yes, happy birthday, many happy returns. So I'm thinking about the Reach. The Reach is probably tradition of the Russian political joke, and these memes. And I would like to hear from you. What do you think? How do you think are the memes different in their visuality from the jokes? What do they do what the jokes cannot, or maybe what do jokes do that the memes cannot do? I would love to hear more about this comparison from you.
Sure. Well, you know what I think of? There's that classic joke that everybody likes to refer to when they talk about how Russian jokes work, where two guys are sitting on a train and there's a woman in the train car, and instead of telling the jokes, they just name the jokes, like number 32, and they laugh number 17, and they go number 15. No, you can't say that when in mixed company, right? They know the jokes so well that it becomes completely indexical. You can just name them without even, it's sort of like instead of tickling a little child, you just sort of wave your finger and they start laughing, right? And so the thing about that joke is wonderful in so many ways. It suggests how much these jokes were common knowledge. But of course, and this is where, you over-explain a joke, you're killing it. But of course, it didn't really work that way, right? Because these jokes weren't numbered. I mean, even folklorists didn't number them, thank God, right? So it didn't, there is a shorthand going on, but it's not that much of a shorthand. But once you have visual images in there, then you have so much shorthand going on there, right? I mean, the moment you have the difference between Lenin looking like the most interesting man in the world, Lenin on the statue, Lenin raising his arm, and then Lenin looking like the stone fox, then the images do half the work for you. And then the humor arises in between the words and the image. Whereas I think in the jokes, the humor often arises within the words, either in puns or in the implicit ironic contrast between what something official and what's actually in reality. I mean, I think it's always based on the humor of contrast, but by having the visual contrast that allows the joke to work a bit differently. But what all of them have is a requirement of some kind of foundation of common knowledge, right? So some of these memes don't work if you show them to non-Russians just because they don't translate well, and that's just translation. And some of them aren't going to work because they don't have the context for it. Like the Yeltsin one, I'm tired, right? I mean, I can explain it and it works, right? And it's funny. But if you already know I'm tired and I'm leaving, then all these jokes about sex and I'm tired and I'm leaving are really, really funny. It's still all about common knowledge. But I think in particular, with those I'm tired and I'm leaving things with Yeltsin, I wonder how well they would work as verbal jokes, even though they're about words, because without the image of Yeltsin there, those words might not necessarily get associated with Yeltsin, because those are two very, very common phrases, right? I mean, we say them all the time. We could even say them together, and it might not be about Yeltsin. But you put them together, you put them on, put the picture of Yeltsin, and then you've got the complete recipe. So I think that's where the difference arises. I think you can, the visual stuff just cuts through your brain really much more quickly, and has a whole range of associations that just aren't available without images. Is that?
Thank you so much. So it's wonderful. Yes, and I would just love for someone maybe do a comparison, right? To write a paper, or maybe to be you, Eliot, right, or somebody else to do a comparison of themes in jokes and in memes, right? Look at all the Lenin jokes and then look at all the Lenin memes, or Stalin
No,
jokes for that matter. That would be super fascinating, right?
that is interesting. I mean, what I find interesting about the connection between jokes and the memes is this whole thing, like the life cycle of joke telling in Russia, right? So like in Soviet times, you go there and there was for someone coming from the outside, and I suspect even for young people not from the outside, but like it's not your generation, like the jokes would be funny, but like also like, oh, enough already. Or like that one guy, usually a guy who just would not stop telling the jokes. Even when they're funny, they just kind of got to be enough. And they were just such an important, sort of basically the verbal equivalent of taking out the guitar and singing Wysotsky, whether you want to hear it or not. And then, of course, there's the phenomenon of perestroika happens, the Soviet Union falls apart, and there's all of this kind of cultural panic over, we have no jokes anymore. Where have our jokes gone? It's a big theme in the 90s. We used to have jokes and they're gone. And so you have this kind of joke drought and some return of jokes, but then I think what you get is the internet memes in a way coming in as their replacement. Not in a systematic fashion, but they do fill a kind of void. And they circulate differently so that you can't exhaust people around the dinner table the same way. You exhaust people differently with it.
Right. What were you gonna do? Show your phone to everyone, right, at the dinner table now?
But haven't you done that or seen people do that? I've done it. Like, oh, you have to one more meme. You got to see this, or one more image. I know I've done it. I probably did it yesterday, but at least it's quicker.
Yeah, but not in a mixed company.
Oh, no.
Thanks again, and с днем рождения.
Спасибо. Спасибо.
Plagiarize Vic here. Yeah, с днем рождения.
We have a question from Nikolai in the chat. Is there a general bend towards more positive themes for particular theories or ideologies of politicians? E.g., Lenin seems more highly on the whole than Yeltsin, etc.
Yeah, so what I would say is, again, in my unscientific sample, I can't find anything positive about Yeltsin, Gorbachev, about either of them. I can find positive things about Stalin, and I can find positive things about Lenin, but not about those two. And so you could say that's about ideology, certainly, but I think it's also about how recent the history is. Because, I mean, if you just simply do the math, which of course one is not supposed to do because of the whole, one person is in the statistics and all that. I mean, if you accept what the facts of what Stalin did and compare it to whatever you think Gorbachev did, or whatever you think Yeltsin did, there's no comparison except that there are people now, a lot of people now who lived through Gorbachev and Yeltsin who are very angry and then don't have firsthand experience of Stalin and Lenin and then can romanticize it. So it's ironic. I think that's one of the things, like if we're going back to Emily's question about how we present this to our students and all that, I think that's one thing that would really surprise non-Russian students is just the vehemence of the hatred for the two figures that American media really love, which are Gorbachev and Yeltsin. And I don't think that surprises any of us, but it's really noteworthy. But again, I wouldn't necessarily call it ideology, except in the broadest sense.
And a question from Dennis. Do you know the Yugoslav political cartoon used in When Father Was Away on Business of Marx working on Das Kapital, and on his study wall looking down on him is a portrait of Stalin? Anything similar in Russian material?
Huh. Well, I know the movie, but I don't remember that moment at all, but it has been a long time since I saw that film. So Marx is writing Das Kapital and an image of Stalin is looking down on him? What exactly, I'm being kind of dense here, what exactly is that supposed to mean?
Oh, am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
You're unmuted, yeah.
Yeah, it's the catalyst for that film. The father gets in trouble when he looks at it's a cartoon that appears in Politika, the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And the father gets in trouble when he says, well, he thinks that the Yugoslav communists are going too far because what they're implying is that Stalin has taught Marx everything there is about Marxism. In other words, Stalin, the great father of linguistics, the great,
Uh-huh. Huh. Wow. Certainly nothing comes to mind. I'm fascinated that I have no memory of this whatsoever, and it's such a key plot point. When I saw that film.
It's at the very beginning of the film in the their train car sequence.
It has been about 25 years, but no, if anyone else can think of something equivalent in the Russian context, that would be great. But nothing comes to mind for that. And in the other thing, of course, there is that that's a political cartoon that was printed in a newspaper.
Yeah, correct, right.
At a time when you could get in trouble, and I'm not sure. I'm trying to imagine the period of time in the Soviet Union when you could actually print a cartoon that is that subversive and also get in trouble for it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Eliot,
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Eliot,
Yeah.
what's the latest movie? The Death of Stalin, was it?
Yes.
That was very funny.
Oh, that was very funny. The most historically inaccurate, well, not the most historically inaccurate, because I did watch The Great. Thoroughly historically inaccurate, but so much fun.
It was very funny. That's right. But great humor.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Any more questions? We have a few comments in the chat, which I can read through, but if there are any more questions, I'll take those. From Tanya. Eliot, have you encountered the Hipster Stalin series of memes? Those are kind of a commentary on hipster culture.
I have, and I actually forgot about them, and so I did not encounter them in this last round of search, and I haven't seen Hipster Stalin for a while, but Hipster Stalin is wonderful. It helps that Stalin was so freakishly handsome when he was young. But so Tanya, do you remember any specific Hipster Stalin memes?
Yeah, what I thought was interesting about it was that I think it originated actually in the American internet. So it's not necessarily a Russian thing, but then it was also appropriated, back and forth. And it's, yeah, so most of the jokes that are kind of thematically linked to hipster Stalin are jokes about hipster culture, which is like, I came up with the Holocaust in the 30s, or like, I did this before that was cool.
I did the Holocaust before it was cool, basically, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So it's both, it's kind of, in terms of its linguistic structure, it's using a lot of the hipster phrases, and at the same time it has Stalin wearing the scarf, sometimes the glasses that are actually superimposed. So I thought it was interesting that this was something that the American culture was doing with Stalin, and not necessarily the Russian internet, but then the Russian internet also followed up.
Which is fascinating. That I love that back and forth stuff. It also makes me think of those editions of English language translations of Russian literature that we've seen, where the covers are so ridiculously updated, like that Brothers Karamazov one with the two wrestling hipster boys. Right. Or The Hero of Our Time with the guy who looks like, I'm trying to remember, but they're just, everybody looks like they're just dropped in from Bushwick. It's so strange. And I don't know if that really helps the sales or not, but I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, Hipster Stalin, absolutely. Look at those again. Thank you.
Thank you, Eliot, and thank you so much for the whole lecture series. It was a highlight of my summer, and I think a lot of people's summer, and happy birthday to you.
Thank you, thank you.
Alexei, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, Eliot, did you have a chance, or can you comment on the pragmatics of these memes? I'm asking because as you were showing that all those memes, I first initially thought they would resemble some of the Trump, Obama, Clinton memes.
Mm-hmm.
But what they actually resembled were the memes from Страдающее Средневековье. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you had a talk on Страдающее Средневековье, which
I should have.
I think provides the most interesting intellectually kind of memes in the Russian internet. And the reason I'm asking about pragmatics is that on the one hand, those memes that you were showing, they're educational in the sense that they translate some kind of complex historical information into visual images that can be then consumed by young people, right, who are not very much into history, but also by foreign audiences. Some of them were pretty much international. You just needed to translate them into English. But on the other hand, they do imply certain historical knowledge. And in this sense, it's not just about transmission of knowledge, but it's about kind of building an audience or even building a community of people who can recognize. It's like about one of those jokes that you say in order to kind of see who in your audience understands them. And those are people with whom you're on the same wave. Hence my question about the pragmatics of these.
Well, I see your point, and I think that what I would say about how these work that is different from those Obama-Trump memes or some of the memes from the Putin and Obama memes that I showed early on, is that they're not pointed in that way. That they really are more like, here's a found image, here's what I can juxtapose with them, which I think is more like how the Sredneviekovье stuff memes work. I never thought of the Страдающие Sredneviekovье memes as being that educational or that really historically based. In fact, because the ones that I can think of are taking advantage of how the poses of these people, like with their hands in a certain way, could easily be like they're holding an iPhone or something like that, right? And therefore, it's less about knowing about the Middle Ages than it is about, isn't it weird about how these bodies are deployed in this particular space, and look what fun we can have with them.
But you know that they got the Premia Просветитель for the public and the book based on that. So in this sense, this kind of educational component was officially recognized by whatever the prize committee gave them that prize.
Was that like Medinsky?
No, that was not official.
Okay. Well, I've been meaning to give them another look anyway, so I will see if I will try to see if I can educate myself about them and with them, and see if I come to a better understanding of the Middle Ages through their suffering. But yes, if I were continuing this, that was one that I would definitely have liked to do. And those of you who aren't familiar with it, these images that basically take these medieval images and icons and so forth and caption them are really, really very funny, and can be and are part of this general interesting trend in Russian meme culture that I think is fairly specific to Russian memes as far as I can tell, certainly compared to American memes, of this interplay between internet memes and high art, like we saw in the isolation memes where people are posing as paintings. So yeah, thank you, Alexei.
Do we have one last question from anyone?
Well, if not, I'd like to thank all of you because you guys have really just made my my isolation so much more fun. It's been nice to have the structure of having something to do, to actually be able to talk with people and feel like there's a world out there. So thank you all for showing up and for being patient with technical difficulties and the occasional incoherence. And I wish you all a great August, and maybe I'll see you again when we talk about Russian commercials. So thank you all. Yes, definitely.